My name's Lawrence Cram. I'm the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the ANU, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon for what I think is going to be a very exciting discussion period. In the spirit of reconciliation, the ANU recognises that it's situated on country where age-old ceremonies and renewal have been conducted. We acknowledge the living culture of Indigenous Australians and thank them for the support of our academic enterprise. This evening's discussion, called What's Wrong with Our Teenagers, is a new type of event for the ANU. It's offered as a partnership between two important national institutions, the ANU and the ABC, and it's offered as part of National Psychology Week. That week's been running since it was a day in 2002, which is a pretty good record for something that's an institutionalisation of an awareness that represents National Psychology Week. What we're doing tonight is being streamed onto the internet, and there'll be a bunch of other technologies, Twitter and things like that, that will be active while the event's occurring. The event's been structured to use the expertise of ANU's academics, particularly those from the Department of Psychology, but it's not designed to have our academics talking to you. It's designed to make the information that's presented this evening as accurate and as informative as possible to everybody here. And if my experience is anything to go by, our academic community will learn as much from this evening as you learn from our academic community. Many of the people in the audience have come from Canberra's high schools and colleges, and I must admit it's my inclination to apologise for the title, What's Wrong with Our Teenagers. I think you could equally well ask what's wrong with our adults. I don't think teenagers were responsible for the global financial crisis, for example. The event really showcases the importance of the ANU and the ABC and locates both those national organisations with their important role in Canberra. I'm delighted to say that the event's going to be moderated by Genevieve Jacobs. I went onto Genevieve's ABC website and I'll embarrass her by saying that what I discovered was that she grew up on a family farm near West Wyalong. Country girl, just like, I'm not a country girl, but I'm a country boy. and she learned gardening, as I did, but she learned it from her mother, whereas I learned it from my father. She encountered university, and may tell us later about how she did that, and then worked as a rural journalist across the southwest slopes of New South Wales. She says that the arts, gardening and the environment, history and politics, and family issues are amongst her interests, but the most ideal qualification for being the moderator this evening is that she also goes on to say that she's an incurably nosy person, that she enjoys discovering people's stories and loves nothing more than a good yarn. It's a great pleasure to invite Genevieve Jacobs to moderate this evening's presentations.
Thank you so much, and I think one always lives to regret those potted biographies. The number of times I've been hauled up for being incurably nosy is no doubt my fault entirely. I'm Genevieve Jacobs, as Lawrence said, and I present the afternoon show on 666 ABC Canberra, and I'm going to be facilitating the discussion tonight on what's wrong with our teenagers. Now, it's something for which I have unique qualifications. Not only do I do talkback every day on the radio and talk to all sorts of people about all sorts of things, but much more than that, so much more than that. I myself have 4 children aged from 10 to 17. I'm really in the thick of it. Thank you for the applause. Although I must say I did mention that I was going to be facilitating this to one of my teenagers and that he'd be able to observe it live on the stream, to which he replied, "Oh look, no offence, Mum, but I'm going out for tea tonight." A couple of housekeeping issues before we start. Please make sure that your mobile phones don't interrupt the flow of discussion tonight. You will have the chance to ask questions right through the discussion. We'll have some microphones around, but look, just catch my eye and we'll get your questions to the panel. And I really do want this to be a very lively discussion. Your input is the thing that will really make it come alive. So think of it as Q&A. I'm Tony Jones in a skirt, and we'll all know what we're up to. While we're on the topic, let's also make sure that these are questions. If you stand up and make a statement, I will sit on you myself very hard. Remember, 4 children, still sane, still stringing words together. I'm very qualified. Now, you can interact, for those who are listening on the stream, by sending comments to #ANUWWWT. And, of course, the stream is operating via the ABC website and the ANU channel. But let's start our discussion tonight. We could argue that teenagers are a relatively recent invention. I mean, time was that if you talked about a complex period of maturing and transforming, most people would have scratched their heads and opined that you were either a child at home or an adult out in the workforce. But it seems these days that while kids are growing up more quickly, they're also growing up more slowly. And the challenges that face them in these mid-years are manifold: body image, cyberbullying, substance abuse. They're all in the news regularly. And add to them things like the peer group relationship, parent-child issues, sexuality, how to carve out a meaningful place for yourself in the world. It's a pretty heady brew. So to address it tonight as part of National Psychology Week, I'd like you to make welcome our panel. I feel that if I say all your names individually, it's going to be like something from television. So I might just ask you to all come up and take your seats, if you wouldn't mind, please. We've got 6 panellists joining us tonight. Professor Don Byrne is on the left here. He's head of the School of Psychology. His areas of expertise include adolescent stress and depression and substance abuse. Antoinette Harmer is also from the School of Psychology. She's looked at relationships and communication between parents and adolescents and understanding how to communicate love. Professor Larry Saha is from the School of Social Sciences here, and he's also editor of Social Psychology of Education. He's canvassed what engages young people at school, as activists, in the workplace, and why. Stephanie Hawke is a PhD candidate in the psychology department. She's undertaking the first ever Australian study of popularity and its meaning and its consequences for teenagers. Jessica Wilson is also a PhD candidate focusing on the relationships between adolescents and between them and their parents and how those relationship patterns change. And Charlie Wood is not the token teenager. She's actually 20. She's a student here at the ANU and a climate activist, and she's also been concerned with bullying, body image issues and how to cope with major social challenges. So let's kick the discussion off. We don't want to have statements from our speakers. We want to really get straight to it. Don Byrne, I'm going to start with you. What happens to the body and brain when adolescence hits?
Well, a lot of things, Genevieve. Adolescence is probably the most major transitional state that we will ever experience in our lives. A lot of people would say, hang on, that's ageing. But believe me, the sorts of things that are happening in ageing pale by comparison to the biological, the social, the cultural, the emotional changes that occur in adolescence. So in that short period, we have a whole packed agenda, which is partly biologically determined, partly socially determined, but a real rocky railroad of things. And one of the consequences of that, of course, is that adolescents can successfully negotiate that railroad and come out of at the end as fully functioning adults, or they can arrive at derailments, if you like. And I guess that one of the things for me is that we often hear about the derailments and we generalise and we say, well, that's the major reason why we all have trouble with adolescence. What we don't hear about is the 95% of adolescents who, might have their hassles, but they're doing perfectly well and they come out as beautifully functioning adults. And of course, they're the people who are going to be sitting here in 20, 30 years' time.